Okay, so recently I've been addicted to Iceberg videos, and with my newfound fascination with them, of course I decided that I wanted to make a video covering one myself. So I decided to choose a topic that I already know quite a bit about. If you've been on my channel before I privated all my gaming videos, you'll recognise this game series. But I present to you Telltale's The Walking Dead Iceberg / Skybound's The Walking Dead. It's a complicated. Okay, so I'm briefly going to explain what an iceberg is, just so you know what this video is going to be. Basically, an iceberg covers different levels of knowledge about a particular subject. The top of the iceberg generally includes more well-known trivia facts, whereas descending down the layers of the iceberg often means more obscure, unknown and mysterious facts and rumours about a topic. And as inspiration from other YouTubers, I've included an indicator of my knowledge on whichever topic I cover. The youngest Clementine means I am very unsure on a topic, whereas the older Clementine means I am more confident about what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's commence this bitch. Oh, and an obvious spoiler alert for all seasons of the Walking Dead game. Powerful stash Easter egg. So, the first appearance of this reoccurring Easter egg is in episode 5 of the first season. After breaking through the attic wall of the house you find in Savannah, you enter the house next door. Before you progress with the story, you're given the chance to explore the room you end up in. If you interact with Kenny during this, he tells you,
"Don't ask me how I'm doing. Let's just keep going."
However, if you repeatedly interact with Kenny 5 times, Lee will begin to talk about Randy Tudor, who is the lead programmer at Telltale Games.
Randy Tudor. Good man. Damn fine man. Powerful stash. One of the greats.
This is the first instance of his powerful stash being referred to. The next time this Easter egg occurs is in the 3rd episode of the 3rd season. If you interact with Jesus whilst he is attempting to hold off walkers, he will deliver you the same speech that Lee did.
Randy Tudor? Good man. Damn fine man. Powerful stash. One of the greats.
The way they both say these lines really freaks me out. Then it returns yet again in the 2nd episode of the final season. Whilst looking at the stars with Violet, if you remain idle for too long, a new constellation will appear in the shape of a mustache. Connecting these stars will lead to Randy's face appearing and winking at the player, displaying the message "he will remember that," which is a reference to the iconic Telltale statement, "so and so will remember that." And then finally, in the 3rd episode of the final season, you can find the remaining stash Easter egg whilst placing collectibles in your room. If you place the sketch toy, you can choose to interact with it. And if you select the draw from memory choice 3 times in a row, you'll find yourself having drawn a mustache with the iconic powerful stash phrase underneath for the final time. Lily's return in No Time Left. You meet Lily in episode 1 of the 1st season. Later on in the season, she goes on to shoot and kill either Doug or Carly, depending on who you chose to save at the beginning of the game. This presents you with the choice to either leave her behind or let her stay. If you let her stay, she steals the RV and drives away whilst you're occupied. She isn't seen again until the final season. However, Kenny's voice actor revealed she was originally meant to make another appearance later on in season 1, returning in the RV. But of course this was scrapped. Mark foreshadows the entirety of Starved for Help. Mark is a character you only briefly get to know, as he's introduced and killed all within the same episode of the 1st season. His first instance of foreshadowing is right at the beginning of the episode, whilst him and Lee are hunting. He says,
"Except then I'd probably be food by now."
Which is so sadly ironic, as he is indeed consumed later on in the episode. He is cannibalized. The St. Johns take this injured man and mutilate him for their Sunday dinner.
Don't eat dinner.
Not only that, but within the same first few minutes of the episode, Mark and Lee also discuss Larry. Mark describes him as,
"He's a walking pile driver."
And states that,
I know I wouldn't want to be stuck in a room with him.
which is exactly what ends up happening. Basically, Mark should have just shut the fuck up and stopped manifesting this shit. Cut slaughterhouse scene. This scene was meant to appear in season 3, however it didn't make it. Many files have been found making references to this in episode 1 and 2, some being sound files and animations. These give us a rough idea on what was meant to happen. Credits entirely to In Cold Blood for these ideas. I'll leave a link to their video in the description. Basically, these files show that Javier and Clementine were captured and trapped within the slaughterhouse. The raiders then attack the New Frontier, leaving an opening for Clem and Javi to escape. One of the raiders, Max, is held back by walkers and holds on to Javi as he tries to escape, maybe in an attempt to beg. Here, you would have had the choice to shoot him or leave him for the walkers. This ends in Clem and Javier making an escape and continuing the story. Although this is speculation, it is speculation with a lot of evidence to back it up, so Glenn and Herschel in A New Day. I've never shown interest in the TV show, but I do know that Herschel and Glenn are both characters within the show who also appear within the game. Here are some side-by-sides of the cameos. I wish I could give you more details and references, but like I said, I don't know the show well enough. Scrapped Sandra flashback. At the very start of the series, as you encounter Clementine, you also encounter her babysitter, Sandra, who is a walker. You then proceed to smash her brains in front of Clementine. All we really know about Sandra is that she appears to have been looking after Clementine as the outbreak occurred. However, later on, files have been found that reveal a lot more about Sandra and Clementine's story. A flashback was meant to happen in the 3rd season, as every episode except the 5th included a flashback from Clementine. Unused animations and sound files actually reveal a really heartbreaking story. This flashback was meant to show us Sandra and Clementine as the outbreak was happening. All credits to In the Cold Blood yet again for dissecting these files. Some model animations indicate that a phone conversation, most likely with Clementine's parents and Clementine, was meant to happen. Then Sandra and Clementine appear to be playing hide and seek. However, they are interrupted by an apparent scratching on the door, shown by a sound file. Sandra, upon opening the door, is then attacked by a walker and bitten. Just as the walker turns its attention to Clementine and begins to attack her, Sandra grabs its foot and, with whatever life she has left, prevents the walker from harming Clementine. With her life being spared, Clementine exits the house and presumably camps out in the treehouse for the events of Season 1 to occur. Krista's fate after all that remains. You first encounter Krista with her partner, Omid, in the 3rd episode of the 1st season. She later goes on to take care of Clementine following Lee's death and becomes a recurring character in Season 2. This is, however, short-lived when she's separated from Clementine in the woods just minutes after the game begins. She encounters scavengers and you can choose between attempting to distract them or just leaving her, but no matter which one you choose, you end up hearing a gunshot. Common sense would lead you to believe that this gunshot kills Krista. However, where the fandom goes absolutely batshit is at the fact that the gunshot is heard off screen and no murder is actually shown. So the presumption, albeit a sensible one, that Krista is shot and killed is simply only a presumption, as her death is never actually witnessed. And then rumours circulated that a character was going to be returning in the final season, and everyone prayed it was Krista. So many people hoped to be reunited with her and hear a harrowing story of how she escaped the scavengers. But then all we got is Lily, which is disappointing. Not even closure about Krista, so technically Krista's fate is still unknown. 10's cut flashback. As the final season was releasing, everybody became curious about a scar that the character 10 had. Many believed we would receive some kind of backstory about this scar. However, we never got that. It's still a mystery, but theories exist. For example, part of the school building appears to be black and charred and destroyed, obviously damaged due to a fire, and many question whether this fire is the origin of 10's scar. It was actually originally planned for us to receive a flashback, as files show this was going to happen, but for some reason it was scrapped. Probably due to the whole Telltale shutting down and budget thing, I guess. I actually got this theory from a YouTube video I found whilst I was researching, but I can't seem to find it anymore. However, if I find it, it will be linked in the description, because I give credits. Telltale lied about 400 days. I'm gonna be honest, I genuinely couldn't find a single thing about this. If anyone does have any idea what this is referring to, please feel free to leave it in the comments and I will pin a comment explaining it. Danny was a pedophile. I mean this is more speculation from the voice actor of Danny. Brian Summers claims it was hinted to him that Danny was in fact a serial killer and a child molester before the apocalypse. You see, I don't even know how these specific things could have simply been hinted at, but like, hey, add cannibalism to the mix and you have a pretty solid fucking creep character here. I guess if you stare into his eyes long enough, you might get goosebumps, but I don't, like, how was it hinted that he was a child molester? Did he hee-hee? Was there a hee-hee that was cut? Larry wasn't dead. This theory roots from the fact that when attempting to resuscitate Larry as he collapses in the meat locker, before Kenny proceeds to drop an entire assault block on his head, slight movement can actually be seen from his mouth. I guess this could indicate that maybe he took a breath, but the likeliness of him being alive is really slim. Like, say this wasn't an animation error and he was breathing, he was bound to eventually pass away anyway because of his heart and lack of medication. He was a racist asshole, so I don't really even care about this theory. Doug was based on a Telltale employee. Doug Tobacco is a former Telltale employee who the character Doug was modeled around. That's it. That's the entire cut fishing scene from All That Remains. Originally, in the first episode of the second season, there was meant to be a fishing sequence with Clementine and Alvin. This scene was also planned to include Luke, Nick, and Pete, and eventually lead to a Walker attack, but it was scrapped and replaced with whatever you saw in the first episode. Carlos wasn't a doctor. You see, I remember when this theory was extremely popular, and I actually considered it a lot. I don't know my take on it, but it started when it was pointed out that literally any doctor would be able to tell the difference between a human bite versus a dog bite. Even in the apocalypse, it's just kind of like a doctor would be able to do that. They should be able to know the difference between dog teeth and rotting human teeth, man. But Carlos was unable to determine this with Clementine, and the fandom was quick to point out that the knowledge he did offer the group, that he considered, medical knowledge, is just kind of basic. And people believe the reasoning behind this is that he lied or exaggerated his knowledge in an attempt to seem important to the group. I think possibly to keep his daughter Sarah safe. Luke and Nick's outfit switch. In early concept art, it is shown that Luke wore Nick's hat and instead had Nick's hair. That's it. They kind of just had an outfit switch, literally as it says. Kenny in the 400 Days intro. It is believed that Kenny and Duck are seen running to a truck in this pre-virus ash black. What the hell did I just say? It is believed that Kenny and Duck are seen running to a truck in this pre-virus flashback in the intro to 400 Days. It's a cool Easter egg, I guess. What the fuck is an ash black? Clementine's pet hamster. Whilst trying to get in the house in Savannah, talking to Clementine can lead her to disclose to you about her pet hamster before the apocalypse.
He used to have a pet hamster. One night, he figured out how to open the door to his cage, and when we woke up, he'd eaten half a box of cookies.
Although I couldn't find any details beyond this small piece of dialogue, like a name. I'm going to appoint a name myself though, because if I had a hamster, I'd call it Fat Ass. Troy was originally Carver. It was discovered that originally, Troy was planned to be Carver. So I believe the Carver character didn't exist, and instead, who is now Troy was going to be Carver. Did that make sense? It did make sense. It's even been revealed that he was planned to be more brutal than Carver. And when I say more brutal, some of the stuff I read, disgusting. I don't think I'd be able to play the game. But then this was revised, and they then created the character Carver, and Troy was downgraded. Okay, I'm going to edit this out if I'm wrong. However, I believe in the Next Time on The Walking Dead preview for episode 2 of season 2, instead of Carver's model being used to show Carver showing up to the house, I seem to remember Troy's model being there, and I noticed that. So I'll edit this out if I'm wrong, but if not, I'll include the clip, because I'm clever. Lee was originally Clementine's older brother. The original idea was for the main character of season 1 to be Clementine's older brother. This was instead of Lee, but the developers later decided that they didn't like the idea of a pre-existing relationship between the two characters. They wanted the player to get to know Clementine at the same time as the main character, and they believed the pre-existing relationship would prevent that from happening, basically. Scrap the Mafia storyline from season 1. There is not a single corner of the internet that I can find that goes into detail about anything to do with the Mafia from the Walking Dead game. And that's a damn shame because it sounds badass. Would it have gone with the story? Probably not, but the fucking Mafia, man. If anyone knows where this originated from, please, for the love of God, tell me, I'm curious. Scrap Tiger from season 2. This is insane. This is the most insane one I read. Originally, it was planned that Clementine would encounter a wild tiger in season 2. Supposedly, it was meant to have escaped from a zoo, but they scrapped it because they deemed it too unrealistic. You see, they scrapped this idea, thinking it was too unrealistic, and then later, this idea was implemented into the comic book and the TV series. I feel like Telltale really felt like they missed a beat there. But from what I've heard, because my girlfriend has helped me with this, but from what she's told me about the TV series and the comic Tiger, it works into the story a lot better than just it escaped from a zoo. So, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing they scrapped it. I don't know, your opinions. Mike's cut death. You see, this one's fun because most scrap content never actually makes it into the game. It's discussed and planned, but it's never actually put into action. But Mike's death was in the initial PlayStation release of the final episode of Season 2. They released it, and then they recalled it. Currently, you have the choice to ask to leave with Mike when him, Bonnie, and Arvo are planning on fleeing the camp, but previously, in the first release, this option gave you the opportunity to shoot and kill Mike. Mike was originally a determinate character. That's insane. It makes me wonder if anyone has the non-updated versions of this game. I wonder, I don't know why they changed it. I wonder why they changed it. That's insane. Scrapped Kenny versus Luke storyline. From what I've read, it was originally planned for Kenny to be the antagonist of the second season. Of course, this would consequently lead to a rivalry between him and Luke, as Luke is the leader of the cabin survivors. So I guess the story was originally meant to center around Kenny versus Luke, which is mad. I wouldn't, I can see that. I don't know if this is official, but I remember reading somewhere that they were gonna have dick size competitions. I think I would have quit the game right then and there. Eddie in Amid the Ruins. This is referring to the thumbnail of episode 4 of season 2, where one of the figures resembles Eddie from the 400 Days DLC if brightened up. There are a bunch of silhouettes surrounding Clementine, and the one to her right if brightened up. This silhouette pretty much, it looks like Eddie. It looks like this character. So people saw this and they thought, oh, Eddie's gonna make an appearance. He didn't, but you know. Thank you, Telltale. It's what they like to call recycling. Original Season 2 episode names. I could only find the original names for episode 2, 3, and 5, but, you know, it's better than nothing. Episode 2 was originally Don't Look Back. Episode 3 was originally In Cold Blood. Episode 5 was originally Better to Sleep. And if I'm being honest, all of these names really do indicate a dark story than what we got. Like, Jesus Christ, Better to Sleep? What the fuck? The final season's original story. Again, I'd like to credit In Cold Blood for this entire concept. Their videos really helped towards my research. The original plot was going to involve Clem, AJ, and all the Erickson kids moving from location to location, as it was intended for the school to be taken over by walkers within the first episode, and then the following episodes would revolve around the kids searching for a new safe place to call home. I don't actually know the source of where this was revealed, but I'm guessing it's in like a, you know, Q&A with the developers, or something along those lines. Links to any research sources will be in the description, so. Duckpocalypse. This is an alternate cutscene that plays if you fail to engage with Kenny in a way that convinces him to stop the train. Certain choices will lead him to kick you out of the car, and that leaves Lee with no option but to return to the trailer, where he discovers Ben, Karcher, Chuck, and Clementine dead at the hands of, well, a now zombified duck. And this is entitled Duckpocalypse, because why the fuck not? A Fatal Frontier hoax. This was a brief rumor about a season 5 that would continue the story of the Garcia family from the New Frontier, but this was just a rumor and was debunked, as the final season is indeed the final season for a reason. If we were to get any more The Walking Dead games, it would center around entirely new characters. Tavia's Bad Day. I'm gonna be honest, and this is gonna come across as really lazy, but despite how much I love these games, I've never actually gotten around to playing 400 Days, and this topic centers entirely around this. And if I want to explain something, I want to at least have basic knowledge on this, so I wouldn't know what I'm talking about if I tried to. But again, I would like to introduce you to our little friend called In Cold Blood. He did an entire video centered around this topic, so I'll leave you a link to that if you're really interested. I'm sorry, I know this comes across as lazy, but like, I gotta get a chance to play this game, man. Pre-order contest. This was a contest that fans of the game could enter to win the chance to be inserted as a character into the game. Brie Rosenholm, I'm so sorry, Brie, I'm so sorry. Won this contest And so the character of Bree from episode 4 of the first season happened, and then she died horribly. Poor Bree. Can you imagine being like, oh gee whiz, it sure would be fun to be a character in a video game, and then you sit there and you watch your intestines get ripped out and devoured, and then you return as a walking, rotting corpse. Yeah, poor Bree. The purgatory theory. This theory is just this, a theory, an interpretation of the game. It revolves around the idea that Lee never left the crash site, and the parallels between him starting the game in handcuffs and then ending the game in handcuffs backs this up, as well as the first walker you encounter and the last walker you encounter both are officers. This theory also brings its focus on the choices of this game, and that, despite it being a game where choices are presented to have importance, they ultimately mean nothing. No matter the paths you choose, characters' deaths are unpreventable, even if you can delay them. This links with the purgatory theme by showing that no matter what Lee does, he can't change anything. He is stuck. This theory gets a lot more detailed, but there is a lot to cover in this video, so I will leave yet another link to a video made on this topic if I've ignited your curiosity. AJ's real father. This is a fairly simple question in the community. In Season 2, Rebecca gives birth to Alvin Jr., or AJ for short. Rebecca is in a relationship with Alvin when you meet her, and you'd assume this would mean the simple answer is that Alvin is AJ's father, given that he's named after him and everything. However, in the first episode, you overhear Rebecca talking to herself as you hide in the bathroom. She reveals that she's praying for her baby to be Alvin's, showing that there's a possibility that it isn't. I mean, come on. The other option is indeed Carver, hinted at by these lines right before Kenny kills him.
The fuck are you looking at, bitch? Don't act like you didn't love every second.
These show that they had some kind of relations, most likely sexual. Although we can point fingers, there's no definitive answer. A lot of people go towards skin colour for the answer to this, but if you know how genes work, you know that's not how it works. Although, towards the later seasons, AJ's model begins to look a lot like Alvin, so. Seasons 2 to 4 are Clementine's dream. Personally, I hate the sound of this, and any evidence to support this would probably be limited and found with a stretch. However, I will leave a link to a video discussing this topic in case you are interested in hearing it expanded on more. I guess it revolves around the time Clementine fell asleep in the RV, and that she's still asleep, and seasons following that are her still asleep, I guess. Unused songs. What I adore about these games is the soundtrack, and as great as the used songs are, there are so many pieces of soundtrack that were scrapped and used that I'm so heartbroken about. I'll play some brief previews and then I'll leave a link to a playlist that I will have compiled for you. Kenny's original death in Season 3. Kenny's death in Season 3 is controversial among fans to say the least, but this wasn't originally going to be how he died. When talking to Kenny's voice actor, he revealed that they planned on having Kenny walk into a river, singing a song, and ultimately dying. This act of suicide would have been extremely out of character for Kenny, so I'm glad they didn't do this. Starved for help. Carly and Doug's cut nightmare sequence. This was a scrapped scene that was meant to occur whilst you were in the meat locker. They consist of Lee in a nightmare-like state, being taunted by Doug or Carly depending on who you let die. These are also interesting because references to Lee's past are made, which we haven't really heard much detail about. They talk about the murder of this guy named Sam, who appears to be the man he caught in bed with his wife. Original Season 2 scripts. Although there have been no definitive releases of full scripts, there are many rumours floating around the fandom of Season 2 having been written to take a much darker route. Small pieces of scrap media back this up, with one example being the original thumbnail for Episode 1 depicting Clementine grasping at her upper arm with her shirt soaked in blood. Considering the only injury she sustained was a dog bite in her forearm, the fact she's grasping up may indicate that she sustained a different wound originally, a much harsher one. As well, with Troy having been planned to be Carver, his role as a villain was meant to be much larger, and I've seen multiple posts discussing some of his actions, some of which include molestation attempts against Clementine, which I just, holy fuck, maybe it's a good thing they lighten the mood a bit, because I would not want to sit through that. The ending was also meant to have a possibility of you dying with AJ, or, leaving AJ to die alone in a blizzard, but I discussed that a little further down the iceberg. To sum this up, Season 2 supposedly underwent tons of revision and rewriting, which ended up changing the story and events drastically. Again, I will leave links to videos that talk over this topic much better than I ever could. Rick Grimes' cut appearance. This comes from the concept art within the definitive edition, as Shane Walsh, Abraham Ford, and Rick Grimes were all down to have had art drawn of them, although they never ended up appearing in the game. It's not a stretch to suggest that they could have come close to being included in the game, as Michonne, who also appeared in the TV show, had an entire separate game dedicated to her. Mason. I cannot find anything on Mason. Who is Mason? Why is this so vague? I can't just Google Mason. There's no Telltale employees called Mason. There's no character called Mason. Who is Mason? Please God tell me. This has haunted my dreams ever since I've tried making this iceberg because it's just so cryptic. What? Who's Mason? A New Frontier original storyline. According to an AMA, the original plot told the story of Harvey being forced to join the New Frontier, being branded against his will in the process. He later escapes, but he decides he must save his family from the group. This leads to him teaming up with Clementine, whose mission was to search for AJ. This entire plot, of course, was scrapped for whatever the hell Season 3 was, leaving AJ behind and no going back. Originally, the final episode of Season 2 was planned to have an ending in which you'd be navigating through Blizzard with AJ, and face the choice of having to leave him behind to get yourself to safety, or sitting with him in the snow and supposedly freezing to death. Yeah, this was scrapped for being too dark. I wonder. Jess Macabe's concept art. First of all, I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong, but Jess Macabe produces concept art for multiple Telltale games, including the Walking Dead series. Here's some of her work. It's sexy. Amid the Ruins town. Yeah, gonna be honest, not a single clue what this is trying to reference. The town exists. I don't know. Talking Walker Easter egg. This occurs in Season 3 as Javier attempts to navigate through a crowd of walkers. If you walk the opposite direction you're supposed to, you encounter a walker that proceeds to speak in perfect English to you. Javier's reaction fucking kills me every time.
Grady standard. Exemplary human being. Standard of excellence, I always like to say. And what beautiful golden hair.
Alvin's unused scarf. Again, I couldn't find anything online, but I assumed that maybe there's somewhere within concept art, files, trailers, Alvin possesses a scarf that we never see. I don't know. If anyone knows, please tell me. Otherwise, Alvin's unused scarf will forever stick in the back of my mind until I die. Every episode of The Walking Dead is personalized. As the game tells you at the beginning, this game series adapts to the choices you make. The story is tailored by how you play. So basically, the choices you choose determine the events within the game. That is why they're saying every episode of The Walking Dead is personalized. Incoming opinion here, be warned, the next is my opinion, not fact. But this is kinda bullshit if I'm being honest. Like, besides from occasional exceptions, most of which are within Season 4, many choices relating to character deaths are meaningless. You choose to save someone, doesn't matter because they die within the next episode anyway. You get on someone's bad side, doesn't matter because they die within the next episode anyway. You see a theme? I understand developers would be reluctant to create a game with too much variety in events and endings due to how enormous the game would have to be in order to tailor to each individual player's decision. The issue comes with that's what's being promised to the player. However, no matter the decisions you make, every player roughly ends up with the same outcome. No matter your choices in Season 1, Lee is dead, and Clementine ends up with Krishna and Omid at the start of Season 2, even if Lee didn't advise her to find them. Season 2 began to feel different when you were presented with the opportunity to have multiple different endings, such as leaving Jane after having killed Kenny, abandoning Jane after having killed Kenny, leaving with Kenny after he murders Jane, abandoning Kenny after he kills Jane, or shooting Kenny after he kills Jane. I don't understand this one, but this was promising for the fans, because your ending truly felt personal to which character you favoured. It appealed to Kenny lovers, Jane lovers, or people who fucking hated them both and just wanted to leave. However, Season 3 came along and no matter who you left with, it didn't even matter because they got killed off in a stupid way. And then bam, you're stuck with an entire new set of characters who you don't even get the chance to give a fuck about before they're killed off. Season 3, you have a handful of endings too. Dead Kate, or Dead Gabe, or Dead David, or like combinations. There's a few I never explored because I couldn't handle playing the game much longer. These endings actually work because there's no Garcia family story continuation after this, meaning no chance for them to make the deaths pointless. So technically, the decisions you make in Season 3 are indeed personalised. The same with Season 4, as the deaths towards the end of the game do become personalised. Your game will either have Lily or James alive, but not both. Your game will kill off either Lewis, Violet, or Ten, depending on whose path you initially choose in episode 2, followed by whether or not you trust AJ. This means despite everyone receiving the same ending of Clementine being alive, whether or not you return with Lewis, Violet, or Ten is entirely down to the player's choices. However, the majority of time throughout the game series, you're made to feel like the choices matter, when in reality, you'll get the same results as everyone else, just maybe some altered relationships with characters which never mattered because they all die. I love the game series though, it's just stupid sometimes. Anyway, that's my coverage on The Walking Dead Iceberg. I gladly take criticism, as this is my first time indulging in content that isn't gameplay. So this is my first video I've planned, scripted, recorded, edited, all this stuff, and it's taken quite a while. So please feel free to leave feedback and feel free to stick around to see my progress. All sources will be linked in the description, and I hope you have a nice day. Also a big sexy thank you to my girlfriend for proofreading my script and helping me record my lines. Bet y'all wish you were me. She swag.